This right here is known as a video cassette, aka a VHS. Believe it or not, there is a time where you could only catch a movie in the cinemas, at the theater. Thanks to this little device, we can now watch movies at home. And you had other home video formats, such as Laserdisc, Betamax, and eventually DVD and Blu-ray. It usually was in a slim case like this. It could be a regular movie, or a blank VHS tape in which you could record Super Bowls, weddings, and different things like that. You would simply pull it out of the case, and it'll be this little cassette here. Then you would put it into this device called a VCR. Yes, a VCR. Now, a VCR was a video player that was really bulky and kind of like a larger version of a DVD player. You would plug it into the outlet for power. Then, you would either use a coaxial cable or video outputs depending on your TV. Afterwards, you put it on the right channel and then insert the cassette in the player and then play.
And now, our feature presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Frederick Lopez and you are on my 400th video. I took a poll across social media and you voted for a Q&A and other, and luckily I got a recommendation for a Q&A VHS collection hybrid. So I hope all of you enjoy this special. First, I'm going to answer your questions that you submitted across social media, and then I'm going to show you a blast from the past with my VHS collection. Okay, so starting out with questions, I want to thank the first person who submitted a question, Joseph, my friend in high school. He asks, who is your industry hero? I have a lot of heroes. As a filmmaker, there's a lot of people who inspired me in the film industry. I would probably have to say George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and also Robert Rodriguez, because I fell in love with Star Wars, but I love all of them because they all bring a level of imagination to their stories. But with George Lucas and Robert Rodriguez, they're kind of out of the Hollywood system, you know, they're like the pioneers of independent film. And especially with Robert Rodriguez, he's a Texan, and I'm from Texas, so he set up camp in Austin, Texas with Troublemaker Studios. So I respect that you can make a film anywhere. As long as you basically put forth the effort, you can make a film anywhere, anyway. And Once Upon a Time Mexico inspired me because I was already interested in filmmaking, but after seeing the special features and how he edited that film, I realized that filmmaking could be a possibility. And it was a possibility for me. So I would have to say George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and Robert Rodriguez are my industry heroes. And you also asked, what made you fall in love with this industry? Pretty much the stories that can be told. Look how people are influenced by media, whether it be journalism, videos. Look at the stuff going on and how media influences our world. Look at storytelling. Look how films make people feel when they're down, when they're happy. Film is a reflection of the world, and it's also a gateway to the human imagination. We are all different, yet film is a universal language, much like literature, art, or music. It's an art form. It's subjective. People like and dislike different things, but film is something that unites us, gives us conversation, and because of that, the industry kind of drew me as a storyteller, and I'm kind of a visual person, so seeing films that way just not only inspire me, but also other people. Really kind of made me want to go into this industry and present my own stories, my own experiences, bring my perspective towards people and see if other people have similar interests. Next question, Jessica's Music Box, aka Stargazer. She asks, could you do a Blu-ray collection too? Yes, I am going to do a Blu-ray collection. Here's a sneak peek. I'm going to do that collection after this video, but thank you for asking. I can definitely do that for you. After that, my brother Rudy, he asks me, what are your thoughts on the film Get Out? You mean these two films? I actually liked Get Out. I thought it was a very clever film. However, I felt it was a tad overrated, and if you're paying attention to the uses of tenses, whether it be past or present tense, you can kind of pick up the twist. I kind of picked up some of the twist, but I wasn't sure how they were going to do it. Still, it was surprising, and it had a bit more comedy than I expected, but I love Allison Williams' performance in there. It was creepy, but something about it was just like, okay, dude, I know what they're doing, but that place looks creepy no matter what. It's an interracial couple. It's not going to end well, and it's like in the middle of nowhere. All these people having auctions. That's just some creepy stuff no matter who you are. Maybe if it was like Meet the Parents where they're like in a middle class suburb, I would feel better about it. But I did like how they brought upon progressive racism, liberal racism in a way where it's like, hey, we're okay, we're not racist, as long as we are in power. And there's something very interesting between the two racial groups in that film. But it definitely reminded me of The Skeleton Key and Stepford Wives. I liked it, but I just think there are other horror movies that were better, and other horror movies in the past decade that could have been considered for Best Picture. I like the film, but I just think it's highly, highly overrated. Next question. Ben asks, do you agree or disagree that DC should focus on an extended universe? Yes and no. If they have a vision for it, definitely, but they need to stop. I don't like this term, but like people have been saying they need to stop playing catch up with Marvel. They kind of do. At first they started their own thing, and then afterwards they're trying to rush into a franchise, and that's something that's a problem in Hollywood. Just make your own stories. Don't try to compete with other people. Do your own thing, and I think it will work as long as you have a vision for it. You stay true to the characters. Have their stories told. Don't interfere with the director's vision. Don't mess it up in editing. As long as they do that, I'm okay for a DC Extended Universe. Other than that, I actually like the standalone stuff. If you do more stuff like Dark Knight Trilogy or like Superman Returns and stuff before, I think you'd be better off. Maybe it can be in a shared universe, but you don't always have to cross it over. Maybe hint that it's in the same world, but focus on just the characters in their own isolated films, and I think you'll have a better franchise. Going forward, what changes would you like to see to improve the quality of their films? I kind of mentioned some of them. Don't interfere in the director's vision. Second of all, they need to get the script right. A lot of the problems they have in production and post-production are because of the story. They try to cram too much. Just try to streamline it more. Look at Wonder Woman. Patty Jenkins did such a fantastic job with that film. Man of Steel even is a great standalone Superman film. I love BVS, but that film tried to cram too much. And then we have the mess that is Justice League and Suicide Squad. So I would like for them to have a more streamlined vision and keep true to the director's eye, the director's story. And yeah, just don't try to mess it up, okay? Have a vision of what to do, but don't try to play catch-up. Another thing they need to do is make films more efficiently. I couldn't believe Justice League cost over $300 million when something like Blade Runner was like $150 million. Or even, I don't know, it was like $170 million, I think. Anyway, it was far less and looked far better, so definitely make more efficient films. Try to ground it more, and by doing that, if you do have a loss at the box office, it wouldn't be that great of a loss because you didn't spend that much money. Where Justice League was over $300 million and didn't do very well. So I would definitely try to make films more efficiently. I think that's what they should do moving forward in that film franchise, in that universe. And I'm a huge DC fan, but they need to get their shit together. Yvonne asks, what's the first movie you ever saw? Oh boy. I don't even remember. It's maybe one of the Barney films, or probably Fox and the Hound or Pinocchio. Definitely one of the Disney films. I remember seeing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs a lot on VHS, Free Willy, Little Mermaid. I'm trying to remember. Like, I don't remember the first film I ever saw, like, ever. I remember those. I remember seeing Specialist when I was little with my parents. They were watching it, just brief glimpses. But as far as movie theater, technically it's The Lion King, but I don't remember seeing it. So the first movie I ever saw, I think, was Batman Forever in theaters, and then Toy Story that year. 95 was a good year. I remember Batman Forever and Toy Story quite vividly in the theaters. But as far as like the first movie ever, it's kind of a blur. It's probably one of the Disney or Barney films, most definitely, because I just can't remember that far back, you know? But it's definitely one of those. And I also remember my brother watching Wayne's World and Last Action Hero and Flux on MTV with Beavis and Butthead. Those aren't movies, but yeah, that's as far back as I remember. Also, Nightmare Before Christmas. I remember that one on HBO. That was pretty good. And Tales from the Crypt, but yeah, that's all I remember. Ben asks, do you think Shazam will help change the course of the DCEU? Yes and no. I actually like Zachary Levi. I'm a big fan of Chuck, but it doesn't quite look like the Shazam from the cartoon and comics. But I think he's perfect because not only is is he like buff and can be an action hero, but Shazam is pretty much like a kid. He like says Shazam and then turns into like Captain Marvel. I mean Shazam basically. So yeah, I think it could work, but I don't know. I'm not sure I like the direction. It feels like it's getting towards the 90s with like Steel and other cheesy 90s DC comic films, and I'm not quite sure I like that direction. I'm kind of more of a darker individual. I like the more grounded, darker approach to the films, and that's all superhero films. I think that's mainly the primary reason why I don't like the Marvel Studio films as much as the early Marvel films. It's because they're just filled with jokes every 5 minutes, and they're just really light, which I don't mind, but you can't do that for every damn film. And you also can't make it too dark. So maybe if there's a balance of being true to the character Shazam, I think it'll be great. As long as you stay true to each character in their own movies, I think they'll be great moving forward. Okay, next question. Alchemist. Jenna and Lisa from Alchemist ask, if you were to be trapped in a TV show, which show would you want to be in? Ooh, that's a good question. There's so many possibilities, yet so many dangers in those worlds. Can you imagine? What if I was in, like, Stranger Things or something? Why did you wake me up this early? Mornings are for coffee and contemplation.
You are like Papa!
You know what? You're a brat. Word of the day is brat. B-R-A-T. Learn how to spell it. Ooh, or even arrow.
Confess, Oliver.
I watched BVS.
What?
I watched Batman vs. Superman, and I liked it! The X-Files even. Like, the X-Files, I'd be chased by the FBI and the shadow government like almost every episode. Or it could be more peaceful like Everybody Loves Raymond or like Dawson's Creek or something. I would probably want to be trapped in Smallville. Could you imagine that?
Made of steel or just a man? Can't be both.
I'm both man and steel. Yeah, Smallville, because of the comic book stuff, like, it's dangerous, but you have superpowers, and if you don't, the human characters are interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff in that universe. It's like in the DC universe, yet more grounded, so it's almost like a nexus of Marvel and DC, but with Superman, you know? So I definitely would want to be in the Smallville universe. Plus, you have a whole bunch of cool pop songs. That's definitely the show I would be trapped in. Most definitely. Thank you for submitting that question, Jenna and Lisa. Go ahead and check out their channel, Alchemist. It's an awesome channel. For all you geeks out there, you'll enjoy it. It's in the link below. Check it out, and also check out Jenna's film Cabin of Errors from Narrow Bridge Films. It's a fantastic, funny film. Definitely check those two out and check out their channel. They're amazing. Thank you for submitting the question, Jenna and Lisa. Yvonne asks, what's a movie everyone loves that you don't like? Ooh, I have to say Jurassic World and probably Star Wars The Force Awakens. Like, I enjoyed it, but it was rather soulless compared to the previous films, and I felt like something was wrong with me because everybody loved Star Wars The Force Awakens, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I was like, really? I don't know, like, even people who didn't love Star Wars got into it with this new Disney era of the franchise, and I just don't like it. Yeah, those are two films that I thought were just overrated. I'm like, what's the big deal on this one? Like, I don't see it. And that's heresy for some, and even for me. I never thought I would say that about a Star Wars film, but yeah, Star Wars The Force Awakens. Next question from Ben. Do you think focusing on villains will help introduce other heroes in the future? Most definitely. I know Joker's gonna have 2 different films, Joaquin Phoenix and Jared Leto. But yeah, there's definitely other villains you could introduce and then have heroes that haven't been featured yet, either in like a reboot or just brand new who haven't had their own films yet. I think they could really do that. What benefits will these villains movies have for them? Well, it's a different avenue because you have the superhero franchises with Marvel and DC, Dark Horse, Image Comics and stuff. And comic books are much more broad, much more complex than just good versus evil heroes and villains. But there's not many people who do films over villains, the bad guys. And I think if you do that, you can kind of get a niche that hasn't really been explored yet. They kind of touch the tip of the iceberg with Suicide Squad. But I could definitely imagine some villains have their own movies. Like Magneto, even X-Men First Class is supposed to be a Magneto movie. That would have been awesome, with just Magneto as a villain. So yeah, I think they could be great because you can see the motivations behind a villain and also like their perspective of why they are a villain. And it's much more Shakespearean, it's much more tragic, it's much more complex than just a regular superhero film where they save the day and they're like, yeah, let's make a joke. In a villain movie, you can have pretty crazy stuff and see why they're the way they are. Are you looking forward to any of them? Yes, I want to see Jared Leto's Joker film, but then Joaquin Phoenix, his Joker film might be pretty cool. I heard they're trying to make a Doctor Doom movie. I don't know what's going to happen at Disney, but I would love to see Victor Von Doom in his own film. I think that'd be the best way to introduce Fantastic Four because they still haven't really... I mean, I like the first two films, but they still haven't really got that series right. And I think if you introduce it from the perspective of Doctor Doom, he's such a major player in the MCU, in the Marvel Universe, in the comics, that I think if you're able to do a Doctor Doom movie right, I think that would be great. Other than that, I wouldn't mind seeing Lobo, even though he's more of like an anti-hero. I wouldn't mind seeing that. That'd be pretty cool. Yvonne asks, do you feel that Universal blew their chance to make something really cool for horror fans with their dark universe, in which they hyped up so much? Yeah, they kind of blew it, but... I think they need to make it darker. I respect them trying to go the action-adventure route, but if they made it darker for adults and did it completely different, not try to Marvelize the dark universe, I think they could have a really awesome film series. And everybody talks about like, oh, Marvel did it first. No, Universal did it in the freaking 1930s. They had that whole series of classic horror films. So they know how to do this. They need to stop having a shared universe. Try them individually and see what happens. Make it darker. Dracula Untold, it was cool, but like, it was PG-13. A Dracula movie that's PG-13, really? I mean, the first 5 minutes of Bram Stoker's Dracula did that origin story much better. Could you imagine if it was like that? The Mummy, I thought was a missed opportunity. Tom Cruise, that's cool to get major actors. I just thought it would have been cool if they had him as Van Helsing, because then you could explain the action, and Van Helsing would have been an element in modern day that would have tied up all the monsters together. So I think they blew their chance, but if they try it again, I think it could work if they're careful with how they approach it. Don't try to make it for the kids. Don't try to make it like the Marvel movies. Don't try to make an action franchise. Know what you want to do. Tell a story right. And I think if you do that and make it more mature for horror fans, even if it is a bit lighter with PG-13 ratings, I think you'll have a much better franchise, and I think they'll stay with the people. Good example, even though it didn't do well, was The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. That movie was really heavy. If they do more movies like that are like standalone films, but in modern day, I would love to see it. Also, they talk about The Rock being introduced in the Dark Universe. I don't know if they're still doing it, but if it is, why don't they just bring him back as the Scorpion King as a bad guy? I would love to see that in modern day. I don't know. But yeah, I felt like they kind of did blow their chance, but I still think if they approach it in the future, they could still do it. Now, Dracula Untold no longer counts, and The Mummy didn't perform well, so they may want to reboot it again. I don't know. Just do standalone movies, and if it connects, it connects, but I think they could be much better now. And if they do a more mature route, I think it could really be something different for adults. Because you have a lot of kids, and they may watch the Brendan Fraser Mummy, but even that film's kind of aged a bit. So do it for the more hardcore horror fans who are older, more mature, who remember watching the classic Universal movies or the Brendan Fraser Mummy. And I think if you do that, I think you can have a hit. But I'm looking forward to it either way, whatever they do. Universal has some great movies, and Blumhouse and Universal are going to have Halloween, so that should be interesting. But it's a bummer. I really wanted to see Javier Bardem as Frankenstein and Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man. That would have been kind of cool. Andy asks, what do you think about Star-Lord being a douchebag in Avengers Infinity War? To say the least, Star-Lord can go to hell. He messed up the plan of Iron Man and Spider-Man in that film. I hate him so much. Ben asks, what's your favorite color? My favorite color is red, but I also like blue, black, and silver. Why do you think the horror genre is having a sudden surge in the last 5 years? I was actually going to do a vlog over this. There's a reason why. Okay, the 50s, you had horror films. The kids who grew up in the 50s were inspired, made some horror films and some remakes in the 1980s. Likewise, it followed, and we have our modern decade now. But I think there's another reason why. Films, like I said earlier, are a reflection of the world, a reflection of society, and there's a lot more that can be said in horror films than any other genre, like dramas, comedies, or action. And I think it's a climate of the world. Look at the 1950s. You had the Cold War. You had McCarthyism. All that stuff going on in society, in the world. And you saw the horror movies reflect that. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Different things like that. The 80s, again, with Cold War. Nuclear tensions rising. And we get that showing. Fast forward to the modern Trump politics. The stuff in North Korea. Terrorism. Post 9/11 world. And you get sort of a commentary and reflection of the world. And I think the different eras of horror movies where they thrived are because of the way the world was at that certain point in time. Good examples, look at the genre in the 90s when things were actually going okay. Things were moving more to like a meta sense, like with Scream. They were getting more savvy, but as far as like the traditional horror movies, look at the times where all the horror movies, slasher films, all the different type of horror movies came out, and look at the climate of the world. Get Out is a good example. Look at the stuff going on now in the country. Police brutality, Black Lives Matter, stuff like that. And when you look at it that way, I think that's why we had a sudden surge in the last 5 years. The Purge films even, and they're ahead of their time. Look at it now, My First Purge, and it's almost like Trump politics on steroids. It's America's worst nightmare. So I think that's why you have a surge in horror films. I thank you for asking that question, Ben, because I'm going to have a vlog going more in depth analyzing the certain spikes in the horror genre. And that was something I was just thinking of the other day. I was like telling my parents and friends like, hey, there's been a lot of horror films lately. Why is that? Why is it making a comeback? And I think that's why. Next question. What's your favorite underrated horror movie from recent years? That's a great question. Even though it's well known, I still feel that Sinister with Ethan Hawke is an underrated horror movie. I really like that film. Another one is Regression with Ethan Hawke and Emma Watson, but I would probably say The Black Coat's Daughter. Such a fantastic film that's directed by the son of Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates in Psycho. Yeah, terrific film starring Emma Roberts. She gives a very complex and just sinister performance in that film. And it's one of those films where you think you know where it's going, and the third act just pulls the rug under your feet, and it's just like, whoa, that's what this film is about. And I like it. Even though it's not the most scary film, it does have some gory elements, but it's just in the horror genre. Even though it's not like a slasher film, it kind of is a bit of a supernatural film in the horror genre. So I highly recommend that. And another film that's a German film called We Are the Night, which is pretty much like Interview with the Vampire meets The Lost Boys if it was with women, and I love it. We Are the Night and The Black Coat's Daughter. Two fantastic underrated horror movies I feel from recent years. What's one you find overrated? The Babadook. The Babadook and Cabin in the Woods I find highly, highly overrated, but The Babadook was not scary. And yeah, it's complex. The mother's psycho, but like, that was just a boring steaming pile of you know? So, The Babadook would probably have to be the most overrated horror movie of this decade, hands down. Out of the shows from directors moving from film to TV, which are you looking forward to most? Ooh, I don't know per se, but the writer of Hell or High Water and Sicario is writing and kind of producing Yellowstone on the Paramount Network with Kevin Costner. I'm looking forward to that. Dee Rees is directing an episode of Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, and it's a really cool anthology show, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. Other than that, I don't know. I'm not really too familiar with like directors from film moving to TV. Steven Soderbergh had The Knick, but that's canceled. So, yeah, probably Yellowstone and The Electric Dreams. I like those two. Danny Boyle has Trust on FX. That one I'm looking forward to. It's Donald Sutherland, Brendan Fraser. That looked kind of interesting for a 10-part miniseries. I did like Fargo. I haven't caught all of season 3. I didn't like as much as the first two, but those were good. After that, which do you think will be a hit or which will be lame? I think Yellowstone and Trust may be good. Trust might be 50-50. It could be good, it could not be good. I don't know. But I think Yellowstone will be a hit. It kind of has that like Justified Longmire vibe, and I kind of like that, you know. So with that and being from the writer Sicario and Hell or High Water, I think it'd be fantastic. But yeah, pretty much all the other shows look lame. I'm not interested. Maybe there'll be sleeper hits. I don't know. Last question from Yvonne. In recent years, there have been a few superheroes that have been reimagined as characters of ethnicities that are different than that of their original iterations. As a Hispanic filmmaker, is there a hero that you think would be cool as a Hispanic male or female? Or a hero that we have not yet seen depicted on the screen that a Hispanic actor or actress would knock out of the park? Fantastic question. I definitely would like to see more representation and more positive representation, different characters, because we do have Hispanic superheroes. Certain heroes that are already established, I think Superman would be cool as a Hispanic. I mean, he could still be Clark Kent, but you saw Dean Cain, he's like half Japanese, so like, he kind of has this kind of like different look to him that I think Superman would be cool. Kyle Rayner's half, I think a Green Lantern would be fantastic. Selena Kyle, Catwoman, definitely would be fantastic. Bane, he's actually Brazilian in the comics. It actually got him, even though it's a villain, as Bane, a Brazilian or somebody who's Hispanic, I think that'd be fantastic. But the hero that I want to see on film is the Blue Beetle, Jamie Reyes. He hasn't been shown yet. Even on Arrow, they mentioned Ted Kord, who is the original Blue Beetle. They haven't mentioned Jamie Reyes, and I think that would be cool. I can imagine some younger actors playing that character. That's one character that if done wrong could be more like the Guyver, but if done right could be like Iron Man with like Power Rangers and The Last Starfighter. A little bit of Star Kid. But no, yeah, definitely Jamie Reyes. And then Renee Montoya, she's a police officer. I haven't really seen her in the Batman universe yet. And I would also like to see the Shadow or the Question, just different characters like that. I think all of those would knock it out of the park. Sunspot from X-Men. And yeah, definitely those. But Blue Beetle, that hasn't been done yet. And if they do that, that might be really, really cool. And again, has a younger character, kind of like Spider-Man or Shazam. So yeah, hands down, Blue Beetle. Alright everyone, thank you for those who have submitted questions. This is my first Q&A. And yeah, 400 videos. I want to thank all my subscribers and everybody watching. Now, it's time for the VHS collection. Hello everyone, now it's time for my VHS collection. As you may know, video cassettes were a major staple in home video for 90s kids, back when home video was still video. To start off, we have The Wizard of Oz, back when it was under MGM, and yeah, this is a fantastic release. I got this at actually Toys R Us, THX Mastered. I really loved this edition of The Wizard of Oz, and any 90s kids out there, you may be familiar with this version. After that is The Lion King. The Lion King is an American movie classic and among one of Disney's best. This was under the Disney Masterpiece Collection. I love the previews to this, and yeah, probably the most violent G-rated film ever made. After that is Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. This was straight to video, but still lives up to the first. Not better than the first, but still great in its own right. Again, with the Masterpiece Collection, we have Cinderella. It's probably the first version of Cinderella I'm familiar with. The Talking Mice, and this is probably my favorite along with Ever After, Drew Barrymore. One Easter, I got Alice in Wonderland, such a great film, and is a precursor to the Alice in Wonderland we have with Johnny Depp. One of the earliest Disney films I ever had was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I love this edition of the Masterpiece Collection. Very, very great film. One of the earliest Disney movies I ever saw was Pinocchio, Jiminy Cricket. I really love this version of Pinocchio. Fantastic film. A hidden gem from the 90s was actually a live-action Pinocchio starring Martin Landau as Geppetto and Jonathan Taylor Thomas as Pinocchio. Nice motion cover here, and of course this is a 90s film. I felt like this kind of was forgotten about over the annals of time, and yeah, I may go over it. It's actually a very well done adaptation of Pinocchio. We have A Tale as Old as Time with Beauty and the Beast. Such a fantastic film. I overkilled this on VHS, drove my mother and aunt nuts, but I have to say, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I even have the sequel, Beauty and the Beast and Enchanted Christmas, which is kind of like a sequel slash in-betweenquel. Tim Curry as an evil piano, an organ player. Yeah, this is great. Three Wishes with Aladdin. Aladdin is awesome. Any person growing up with Disney knows about Aladdin. Robin Williams, Jafar. I even have Return of Jafar, which actually has more stuff from the Aladdin TV show. And then my favorite with the first is Aladdin and King of Thieves. Such a great way to close out the trilogy. But I love Aladdin. This is actually a very, very well done trilogy. This is the first one again. And then Return of Jafar. Return of Jafar is probably like my least favorite except for the ending. But yeah, 1 and 3 are awesome. This is a very, 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 very well done trilogy. After that is a Walt Disney classic, one of the earliest Disney films I ever saw, called The Fox and the Hound. Sad movie. Next is actually a really, really well done live-action adaptation of 101 Dalmatians with Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil. This is awesome. Jeff Daniels, Hugh Laurie in an early role. Yeah, I remember seeing this in theaters, and this is how you do a live-action adaptation. It's pretty much a straight adaptation from the cartoon to live-action of 101 Dalmatians. Besides Hook, this is my favorite version of Peter Pan, the Disney one. I really like this. This is a fully restored 45th anniversary edition that has some special features, and yeah, I may want to upgrade to Blu-ray on this one. After that is a masterpiece of Lady and the Tramp. Such a great romantic tale. Then we go from zero to hero with Hercules. Believe it or not, the only reason why I wanted to see this when I was younger was like Danny DeVito and James Woods' voice, but very well done film. Then we have Fun and Fancy Free, which is pretty much like Jack and the Beanstalk and all these crazy adventures. I really like Fun and Fancy Free. A pleasant surprise. And from the creators of Nightmare Before Christmas, we have a Walt Disney classic called James and the Giant Peach. They really don't make films like this. Not anymore, and this is a truly unique and original film. Next, we go to the world of Jim Henson with A Muppet Christmas Carol, starring Sir Michael Caine. I love this film. This actually has the trailer to Lion King on it. It's crazy, but this VHS is really worn out. And then we have Muppet Treasure Island, starring Tim Curry as Long John Silver. Such an awesome movie. For those who remember the Muppets before the Jason Segel films, the original Muppets, these are fantastic films. Yeah, I love these films. Then we have Pocahontas, and I like this. Great music, story, animation, Mel Gibson as John Smith. And then we have an underrated movie from Disney called Tom and Hook. Yes, 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 Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Can't get any more 90s than that. After that is another Disney Robin Williams classic with Flubber. I love this movie. I wish there was something like Flubber that existed in real life. Such a fantastic late 90s film. I remember seeing the previews to this on the Movie Surfers. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend Flubber. Next is MJ with Space Jam. I love this movie, such a classic. What more do you want? It's Looney Tunes meets Michael Jordan in the 90s Chicago Bulls. Yeah, this is an awesome movie. And then I remember getting this at Toys R Us. 1998 was a good year with Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. It's terror time again. Yeah, this is like the best animated Scooby-Doo film where the monsters are actually real. Next we go to Universal Studios with E.T. Extraterrestrial. Such a classic film. Yeah, THX mastered. This is awesome. And then any 90s kid may remember The Little Rascals. I love this movie. Yeah, this is just a feel-good movie. A lot of great humor. The kids are fantastic, and yeah, alfalfa. And that car race. Next is a very well done adaptation to Casper the Friendly Ghost. Bill Pullman, Christina Ricci, but it's one of the saddest movies too. I love this movie. Yeah, there's just so many great movies of the 90s on VHS. Next, we have Pokemon the first movie. Yeah, this was a big deal when it first came out. I didn't get Pokemon 2000, but I did get Pokemon 3 the movie with Entei. Yeah, two very good Pokemon films. Next is a movie I watched with my aunt many times called Dennis the Menace, Walter Matthau. This is such a funny movie. John Hughes wrote this. This is a classic. We also have a Macaulay Culkin film called Richie Rich. I love this version of Richie Rich. Two great Warner Brother films from the 90s. And speaking of 90s, does anybody remember Batman the Animated Series? If you do, here is Mask of the Phantasm. One of the best Batman movies ever made, if not one of the best animated movies. Oh my god, I love this film. Yeah, this is an awesome movie. Back to a movie that had the Mask of the Phantasm trailer, we have Free Willy. This is such an underrated movie. I love Free Willy. Richard Donner produced this. Yeah, Michael Jackson's soundtrack. This is a fantastic feel-good film. We also have its sequels with Free Willy 2, The Adventure Home. Came with that one necklace or whatever. I lost it, but yeah. Very underrated film, deals with an oil spill. And then we have Free Willy 3, The Rescue. I didn't like this one as much as the first two, but overall, Free Willy has a pretty good trilogy. It's not a bad trilogy, per se, for the price. So yeah, 3 Free Willy films. Not bad. And then, kind of switching gears, we have Kirstie Alley and John Travolta in Look Who's Talking. Bruce Willis, yeah, such a fantastic film. I don't have Look Who's Talking 2 on VHS, but I do have Look Who's Talking Now, with the dogs, Diane Keaton and Danny DeVito as the voice of 2 dogs. Overall, not bad films. Very, very underrated trilogy with Kirstie Alley and John Travolta. Speaking of dogs, we have Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. I love this. And then Homeward Bound 2, Lost in San Francisco. Great movie. Both of them are fantastic. We have Sally Field and Michael J. Fox playing voices. Yeah. The main guy from Airplane plays the dad on both of these. And of course, it's based off the novel, The Incredible Journey. Fantastic films. Here we have 20th Century Fox with Dunstan Checks In. Overall, not a bad film. And then for any 90s kid out there, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. You ooze, you lose. This is about to get a Blu-ray release. I can't wait to level up, but yeah, a lot of great memories with this film. Then we have The Prince of Egypt, Story of Moses, with the voice of Val Kilmer. And we have a very underrated film that came out the same time as A Bug's Life, but I like it far better, called Ants. And speaking of DreamWorks, this film's about to turn 20. Small Soldiers is awesome. Archer, leader of the Gorgonites. Joe Dante directs this fantastic film. Then we have Robert Rodriguez's Spy Kids. And then anybody growing up, you may remember The Sandlot. Forever. Forever. On a more adult note, here is Police Academy. Very funny film, and then I got this from a movie gallery, old rental place, Police Academy 2, The First Assignment. I love the Police Academy movies. They're funny. Then we have Toy Story from Disney. And then after that is a very underrated remake from Disney called Mighty Joe Young with Charlize Theron and Bill Paxton. And then, I don't know if anybody remembers this. Here is a cartoon of Little Nemo. Not Finding Nemo, but Little Nemo. It's weird. VHS used to have like all these knockoffs or other cartoons that weren't Disney, but they were kind of similar. This is kind of like a standalone thing. I remember getting like a Little Mermaid that was done in the same fashion as Little Nemo. Then we go dark with Batman Returns. I love this movie. And then we have Batman Forever. My mom got me this on Halloween of 1995. Still have these 2 films. I love them. And then Smokin'. The Mask with Jim Carrey. Very, very great film. Afterwards, I have this 2-pack of Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and Ace Ventura When Nature Calls. And it's a funny story because I actually got this at Blockbuster. And it was listed as $9.99, but the ringer at the cashier came up with 99 cents. So this is back before like DVDs. This is back like on VHSs. A little wear and tear from the moves. But yeah, I got this for 99 cents at Blockbuster. How crazy is that? Then is a great film, underrated Steven Spielberg film, and my favorite version of Peter Pan called Hook, starring Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, and Julia Roberts. Such a fantastic, beloved film. Anybody growing up in the 90s, you definitely remember this film. Then we have 2 of my favorite adventure films with the Brendan Fraser Mummy from 1999 and The Mummy Returns. A little wear and tear, but I have them on Blu-ray. Nevertheless, 2 fun, adventurous films. Then we move on to the Galaxy Defenders with Men in Black. I love this kind of holographic cover from 1997 Christmas, and then Men in Black 2 on VHS. Back in Black 2. And then from the same director, we have Will Smith with Kevin Kline as Selma Hayek in Wild Wild West. Started the Burger King Big Kid Meal. Then we move on to M. Night Shyamalan with The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable. Can't wait to see what Glass looks like. Two fantastic M. Night Shyamalan films. After that is an awesome Arnold Schwarzenegger movie called Last Action Hero. I love this movie. Yeah, during the 90s, we watched a whole bunch of inappropriate movies. I watched R movies. I didn't mind. I didn't turn out to be a psychopath. I was a huge fan of Mel Gibson action films and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And yeah, this is awesome. Even for PG-13, I'm a huge Arnold fan. After that, we go a bit with Ben Stiller with Dodgeball. And then a film that I think was way ahead of its time called Mystery Man. I love Mystery Men. Such a funny film. Then we have a really great remake of Dr. Dolittle starring Eddie Murphy. Extremely funny. Then Warner Brothers Macaulay Culkin film called The Nutcracker, which is pretty much like an onstage production. And then Oh Behave with Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. Speaking of Peter Pan, here's like a Spanish version of Peter Pan that my sister had. Entirely in Spanish, animated. The cover's kind of damaged. But then I also have The Last Samurai starring Tom Cruise. Fantastic film. Then you wouldn't believe who I saw the other day. Emilio Estevez. I was like, Emilio! It's Mr. Mighty Duck Man himself with the Mighty Ducks. And then we have Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Who's your daddy and what does he do? We have Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker back for Rush Hour 2. Next is a kind of different film called Three Men and a Little Lady, which is a sequel to Three Men and a Little Baby with Tom Selleck, Steve Guttenberg, and Ted Danson. Then we have The Santa Claus starring Tim Allen. Another great 90s Tim Allen film called Galaxy Quest. And then we have Stallone and Snipes in Demolition Man. Sandra Bullock as well. Responsible for Dennis Rodman's hair. Then we have Scary Movie 2. A classic film called Beethoven. I love this movie. Then an underrated film with Woody Harrelson and Kiefer Sutherland called The Cowboy Way. Very funny comedy with Dylan McDermott as a villain. Awesome Damon Wayans film called Major Payne. Then we have Warren Beatty and Al Pacino and Dick Tracy. A very early comic book adaptation. Very well done. Here we have Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Every saga has a beginning. Here we have Ninja Turtles. I love Ninja Turtles. This is the first one. Such a fantastic film. Very underrated. Then we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Then I, Robot starring Will Smith. Classic film called Willow with Val Kilmer and Warwick Davis. I want this to come out on Blu-ray. Titan A.E. Awesome movie with Matt Damon. Animated. Then we have a John Carpenter classic with Big Trouble in Little China. Afterwards, we have 3 Disney films that are awesome with Rick Moranis called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, and Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. And then Who You Gonna Call? Ghostbusters! 1 and 2. Fantastic late 90s digitally remaster of the films. I love the Ghostbuster movies. Classics. Then for those who remember, here is a Hollywood Video case of GoldenEye with Pierce Bronson. Then we have Transformers. Awesome 80s movie. And then a prequel sequel, kind of like a different movie of Casper, A Spirited Beginning. Going from there, I made my parents disappear with Home Alone. Fantastic trilogy. I got into this film when the third one was coming out. This is actually an underrated film as well. I love all 3 Home Alone movies. They're fantastic. After that, we have Star Trek with Wrath of Khan. Such a classic film. And then we have Star Trek First Contact. We Are the Borg. Resistance is Futile. I love this. And finally, Star Trek Nemesis. And then any VHS you see at a pawn store or thrift shop is Titanic. Any 90s kid remembers this set. 2-cassette set of Titanic. Then I love this film. It's The X-Files. I love this. And then over here is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And this is a dubbed version, so it has their voiceovers. But Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh provide their voiceovers in the English version. Here is an underrated TV adaptation, a film adaptation of a TV show called I Spy, with Eddie Murphy, Owen Wilson, and Famke Janssen, Jean Grey. Not a bad film. Now we have a trilogy that got me into filmmaking called Mad Max. Now this actually has an American dub version. It's not the Australian version like the DVD or Blu-ray, but I still enjoy this. Then we have The Road Warrior. Special case with an introduction by Leonard Maltin. And finally, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, shows us that we don't need another hero. Thunderdome. I love this trilogy. The Mad Max trilogy is fantastic. I even had it as a kid. I love this. Then we have a classic Universal film called Dracula with Bela Lugosi from 1931. And then a very underrated superhero film, one of my favorite films watching when I was growing up, called The Shadow. What evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows. Then we have the conclusion to the Dollars trilogy with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. 2 cassettes. Now it's all on 1 disc. Then we have The Matrix. I love this movie. And then The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis, Mila Jovovich, and Gary Oldman. And then we have the last VHS brand new that I had that ever got purchased, and that is Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. I love this film directed by Michael Mann. The last VHS I got when it was like new, when VHSs were still a thing before DVD and Blu-ray took over. Next is a classic called National Lampoon's Vacation. I love this film. Clark Griswold is like everyone's father. Then we have European Vacation. And then my personal favorite, Christmas Vacation. Then we have a 1980s Eddie Murphy classic called The Golden Child. Noomsy! Then an awesome Arnold Schwarzenegger film called Total Recall. This is part of the Schwarzenegger collection in 2000. Then we have the special edition version of Superman the Movie with Christopher Reeve, done by Richard Donner. This movie just turned 20. Godzilla. Size does matter. And speaking of post-VHS, here is an unopened version of an alternate cover I found of Scream from 1996. Still unopened. And yeah, this is such a rare find because I never remembered this cover. There's like 3 alternative covers with the cast. This one's Sidney Prescott and Neve Campbell. I love this film. What's your favorite scary movie? Any 90s kids growing up, you're going to remember this kick-ass movie, and Mortal Kombat. I love this movie. This movie was just my childhood. And even its bad sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. 2 fantastic adaptations, but this one just rocks. Now with Jurassic World out, here's the original Jurassic Park on VHS. I also have like a collector's edition back when they did the DVD releases of The Lost World, Jurassic Park. And then here is Jurassic Park 3 in a silver cover. Overall, not a bad trilogy. I don't know about your childhood, but mine was filled with awesome R-rated movies, and here is Paul Verhoeven's 1987 classic, Robocop. I actually got it because I saw Robocop on TV. It was awesome. But I saw Robocop 3, and I got this at Target, asked my mom for it, thinking it was this film. Boy, was I in for a shock and surprise, but it was a pleasant one because this is an awesome movie. One of the best R-rated movies I ever saw. And yeah, I have Robocop 3. 2 very great movies. After that, we have a person who's going to save every one of us. Flash! Save every one of us? Flash Gordon. Very underrated, kind of cheesy 80s film, but the Queen soundtrack is awesome. I love this. Then there's Gladiator. Are you not entertained? And then a very underrated film, and just a great film that needs no remake. Brandon Lee's The Crow is a fantastic film. Then we have a film that's responsible for me playing hooky and skipping school, and that is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Such a fantastic Paramount film. Yeah, I even had like the little Paramount logo. Next, of Arnold Schwarzenegger, we have the John McTiernan classic, Predator. Cool holographic cover. Then we have a guilty pleasure of mine called Charlie's Angels. I love this movie. Then we have the original X-Men from 2000. And then we have another James Bond with Goldfinger starring Sean Connery. And then Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood. The last Warner Brothers film out of the bunch is Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice! I shouldn't have said it 3 times. Last but not least is a fantastic trilogy box sets of the Star Wars original trilogy and the Adventures of Indiana Jones. I love these two films. Indiana Jones is such a fantastic film. Temple of Doom. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, it's a bit more zoomed in than the original covers. And then we have The Last Crusade. Fantastic bunch of films, really. I really like them. Woo! That was a long video, long Q&A, a lot of VHSs. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for voting. Thank you for submitting your questions. That is my 400th video special. Thank you for watching if you made it that far. You can also skip around, but thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for supporting this channel. My next video will be a Blu-ray collection. Even though I wanted to wait till Ready Player One came out, I'm still going to do it. But yeah, I have more videos coming in the future. Armageddon 20th Anniversary Retrospective, Mask of Zorro, Small Soldiers, so much. But I hope you all enjoy this, enjoy the channel, and thank you for supporting me. Thank you for everything out there. May you have a wonderful day. And I hope you enjoyed this blast from the past. Be kind, we wind. And yeah, till next time.